Today I am 38. Well, I'm actually still 37, but by the time you see this, I'll be 38. You are broke. Why are you happy? It's about the small moments and the small wins. It's kind of weirdly making me emotional. What the hell? The journey is not linear by any means. Do you hear that? It's not even an uphill climb. It's like a hard right, a detour, a shortcut. Today, I am sharing lessons I've learned in my 30s as your multi-passionate big sister who has kind of made a lifestyle and a career out of winging it. I figured the best way to share these lessons is through my own stories and experiences, obviously, starting with the year I turned 30 up till now. So let me take you back to 2017. 2017, my Delulu era. The year Derek and I got married and the year I finally got on his health insurance until he quit his job to become my full-time business partner. When Derek first decided to quit his job, he was actually the top salesman at the company he worked at, but he was also miserable. It just seemed like no matter how much he performed, it was never enough. The company he worked with always wanted more. Like he couldn't even enjoy the money that he was making. I, on the other hand, was broke AF. I was stressed AF and just trying to grow my marketing agency that I had started in 2014. I was burning the candle at all ends, but I was also really hopeful, really happy, really excited and passionate about what I was doing. Derek was actually like so confused and sometimes like resentful and jealous of me because he's like, you are broke. Why are you happy? And I think he finally realized that money, while yes, it does make life easier, it doesn't necessarily equal happiness. When Derek finally quit to come work with me, our friends and our family were like super confused and very concerned. Genuinely, I'm pretty sure people thought we were crazy. And while of course we had friends and family that were rooting for us and that wanted us to succeed, I'm pretty sure there are also people in our lives who were like waiting to see what would happen. We didn't realize it, but it would become one of the most formative decisions we've ever made for our lives, for our relationship. It's kind of weirdly making me emotional. It taught us how to work together, how to solve problems together, how to fully trust each other, and how to communicate properly. Like this could have gone so terribly wrong, but thank goodness we were delusional and privileged enough to give it a shot. The lesson I learned from this experience: break free from whatever is conventional, what you've been taught, what you've been told, simply because it's what you think you're supposed to do. Following what lights you up inside, even if it makes zero sense, will lead you where you're trying to go. Now be smart about it. Obviously, I would never advise anyone to quit their job if they didn't have like a safety net or a plan. But the moment I started my own business, the moment Derek quit to become my full-time business partner, I learned that I don't ever want to sacrifice what feels right in my bones, what feels right in my heart, my soul, for what I think I should do or what is expected of me. You never know where things might lead. And it's the most terrifying thing ever, but it's been worth it. 2018 was kind of my hustle era. This was the year of throwing everything at the wall and learning how to run a business with your spouse. Being a business owner, your world kind of exists in a vacuum, especially when you're first growing and learning. There's nobody to tell you if you're doing things right or wrong. There's no one to kind of tell you you're doing a good job or validate the work you're doing. There's not even somebody to tell you like the things that you're not aware of. You're forced to like sink or swim. I used to dream of scenarios of getting an email from a potential client that had like a $200,000 budget, or blowing up on social media and getting like a flood of inquiries. And while that is absolutely possible, I was always waiting for these like big moments. But a lot of the time, it's about the small moments and the small wins. The culmination of everything I built has been created from like nothing. It's been like one idea, one video, another video. The work almost feels like nothing is happening while you're doing it, you know? Until one day you blink and all of a sudden you've signed your first $225,000 contract. The lesson: keep going even if the path isn't clear. Do you hear that? I don't know if you can hear that. 2019 was my burnout era. I had spent however many years growing from freelancer to tiny agency owner. Before Derek came on board, I had been admin, sales, designer, social media manager, content creator, like literally everything. And then when Derek was able to take some of that load, I decided, well, I just want to be a designer, until I no longer enjoyed designing. Then I wanted to be creative director until I realized I don't want to be the creative director. I only want to create for myself. And to be honest, like I felt a lot of guilt over it. I felt like, oh my gosh, like I keep wanting to do this thing, and then once I get there, I don't want to do it anymore. 2019's lesson: it's okay to change your mind and it's okay for your dreams to evolve. I've created like multiple brands. I've had a successful blog. I have designed and sold t-shirts. I used to sell stickers. I wanted to open a cupcake business. I started a podcast. Oh my God, I totally forgot that I had a podcast. Anyway, you get the idea. 2020 was heavy on reevaluating and reimagining what I wanted to do, who I wanted to serve, how I wanted to show up, what our new visions for the future were, considering, the world was shut down. When COVID first happened, our services, our business not only became really important, but actually essential to connecting people locally through social media, through content, through websites, and sharing information and resources. We were actually already working with the local Chamber of Commerce and a few small businesses. So I remember like putting together a page on our website specifically to share information and resources with other locals. We basically ditched the idea of focusing on promoting our services, combined our skills that we had accumulated over the years to directly help small businesses, whether it was doing online seminars or writing blog posts, specifically on how to connect directly with your audience or show up online in a time like this. And because our services were so needed, it helped our business survive. Community is one of the most important and valuable resources we have, especially in times of need, especially when times are hard. Whew. I feel like I owe a lot of my success to the small business community. Like, community is so important. It's so important in hard times to like show up for each other. What the hell? So weird. Showing up for the community the way that we did helped our business survive, because it wasn't just like we were pouring into the community and getting nothing in return. It was definitely a full community effort. Small business owners, other small creators, other small service providers. But the lesson here is actually getting comfortable pivoting, especially in ways where it's mutually beneficial to causes and communities you care about. But in general, get comfortable rolling with the punches because, life. 2021 was my deeper well era, like an existential WTF is life even kind of moment. I feel like this was the year of reimagining. In 2020, I lost my grandma, and we were so lucky to have her in our lives for so long. She was actually 97. But when grandma passed, like, everything changed. She's the reason I have a deep connection to Japan. She's the reason I care so much about community and cultivating community, pouring back into community, fostering community. 2021 was still obviously COVID times. It was post George Floyd, post the reignition of the Black Lives Matter movement, and the height of Asian hate. So much of the daily grind felt kind of like unimportant. And it felt like I had kind of lost that initial spark that I had when I first started the business, when Derek and I first became business partners. And the harder I tried, the more I felt lost. When you need inspiration, or should I say desperately need inspiration, it doesn't always show up, even if you know that it is accessible within you. I learned that sometimes the best thing you can do is wait and listen. Life isn't a race, and sometimes the clearest course of action is to be still and pay attention to what's being presented, especially when a wide range of emotions are coexisting all at the same time. Practicing being present, curiosity, and gratitude usually helps me to determine where I'm at and whether it's a season of doing or being still. And in times of waiting, I really am always surprised as to what kinds of opportunities present themselves, especially from work I did in a doing season. 2022 was another year of intense learning. This was the year we packed up our entire lives and traveled the world. To set it all up for you, 2022 actually started with a bang. Things were starting to feel kind of normal again post-COVID, even though we were still kind of in COVID. We had steady clients. We had been working with a promising startup for a year, running their social media. They actually flew us out to Austin city limits and some team offsites. They offered us salaried jobs while we got to run our company. We invested our sweat equity, but also our own money into this company because we believed in it so much. And after so many years of clawing, scratching, climbing our way through running our business, I felt like this is the year we get to start a family. Our finances have never been like this before. But the moment the startup ran out of funding, our promised salary, our savings, projects we had pulled back on, it just felt like everything was gone kind of in an instant. At the same time, our landlord had been laid off and needed to move back into his house. And we had moved, 3 times in 2.5 years. We decided to put our stuff in storage, travel around, figure it out, and just reset. We shared an Airbnb with friends in Palm Springs. We crashed at our friend's place in Germany. The yen was super weak to the dollar at the time, and like tourism had just opened up again in Japan. So we lived in Japan for a couple months because it was dirt cheap. There were a few times where we had no idea where we were going to be like the following week. But I do acknowledge the fact that the ability to even consider this as a possibility is such a privilege. Derek and I are so lucky that we both have family members that were able to put us up. I am forever grateful for that phase of our lives and for that experience. Even if we chose this path out of necessity and to save money, it was also like kind of a pipe dream of mine and Derek's. It changed the course of everything. It changed the way I view travel, mostly in how accessible it actually is and how much you can save while traveling if you do it right. It also changed the entire trajectory of my career. Anyway, oh my God. We ended up in Big Bear for a couple of weeks during that travel stint. It was actually at the beginning of the whole nomadic journey. One of the nights we decided to go foraging, if you catch my drift. And that night, a massive thunder and lightning storm rolled through. We were seeing the lightning from the window. Obviously, we could feel the rumblings of the thunder. And at one point, we ended up in the eye of the storm. Like the storm was right above the house we were staying in. The weirdest part is that it felt calm. And it made me realize that there is calm within the chaos. Let go of control or trying to maintain it. Trust that things will always work out for the better, because each part of the journey, each part of the storm is a pivotal part of the process. Change is normal. Change is inevitable. Change is what helps us keep growing. And you cannot control everything. So when life is chaotic, the best way to cope is to find calm in the chaos. Find your cozy in the chaos. Which leads me into an additional bonus lesson brought to you by Klook. Learn how to be smart with your time and money. As a business owner and full-time travel content creator, learning how to be smart with my time and my finances has been one of the most empowering and important skills I've learned. From proper budgeting to understanding where I can mitigate stress and time constraints. Now, you know, I'm no stranger to chaos, especially as a laid-back travel girly who often books her trips last minute. Using Klook allows me to plan and budget my trips accordingly. I actually often use it as a resource for budgeting things that I need to book for trips, including everything from experiences to theme park tickets to train tickets, even to hotels. By the way, the last hotels that I booked for my trips to Japan and Italy were all cheaper through Klook. Using Klook also saves me so much time and stress by being able to bookmark things that I'm planning and by housing everything in one app. I don't have to worry about having an eSIM app or a different ticketing app or opening my email to get a reservation. Everything is in one place, available for me to access anytime I need it. Klook has by far become my favorite travel resource for ideating, planning, budgeting, and of course, booking. If you're planning any upcoming travels and you want to save some money, definitely use my code for 10% off your first booking or 3% off your second and third. Lastly, I want to thank Klook for being such a supportive brand partner. I love working with companies that support small businesses and small creators. And I'm not actually exaggerating when I say Klook has changed my life, my career, and the way I travel for the better. On to the next lesson. 2023 felt like a clean slate. It was kind of like the year that we had to rebuild from scratch. The previous year obviously had hit us so hard, and in many ways I felt like a failure. So did Derek. I felt like I wasn't where I thought I would be at that time in my life. All the hope that we had the year before in planning for a family no longer felt like an option because we couldn't afford health insurance. I was still coping with the expectations and realities of the life that I had envisioned, and yet I was also living out one of my dreams, which truly made me appreciate how life is about the journey, not the end destination, which is actually an evolution of a lesson that I learned in my 20s. Don't forget to stop and look at the view. Because what is the point of obsessing over where you're trying to get to if you can't even appreciate the journey? Life happens in the present, so most of the experiencing part of life is in the actual journey, even if it feels gratifying to arrive at the destination. I actually have to remind myself that I keep moving the goalpost, and I have actually reached the destination many times over. 2024 was the era I put my head down and focused on taking action. It was the year I launched my first digital product, the year I officially got paid to travel, and the year that Derek and I finally put ourselves on payroll for the first time after 10 years of owning a business. 2024 was the year I reconnected with myself and owned my quirks in a way that felt natural and sustainable. Routines haven't really worked for me in my adult life. I've never been a morning person, and I've dealt with so many body issues and unhealthy eating habits. So this was the year that I tried to follow my intuition. Different forms of moving my body that didn't feel like a chore, mindful and intuitive consumption. I tried out implementing micro habits instead of routines. That actually really worked very well. I also finally fully embraced parts of myself that I had been fighting or hiding. For instance, being an extreme night owl. It's 11 o'clock right now and I am filming. I will be editing this after I'm done filming. My parents always told me that I was the kid who would play with something for 10 minutes and then get bored and move on to the next thing. I would take out all of my Barbies, and then as soon as I set up all my Barbies, I'd be like, wait, I want to paint. And so I'd put my Barbies away, I'd take out all my paints, and then I'd paint, and I'd be like, wait, I want to collage. And then I would basically spend my day just doing that. So I remembered this and kind of tried to incorporate it into my operating system. I didn't realize that I had been essentially fighting this natural way of being for my entire adult life, but it helped me understand and realize that your inner child is the blueprint. Everything I loved as a kid is what I love to do now, and in fact, what I kind of do as my career. I never really stopped following those passions, but the more I've owned it, the more my entire world has opened up. And basically the way I showed up was reflected in that year that I had. I traveled to Japan twice for work for a total of almost 3 months. I traveled to Singapore for work. I embraced the mess and chaos while trusting that the blueprint of my being would guide me accordingly. Which brings us to 2025. God, what a crazy year. I don't know when it happened, but it feels like I've finally arrived. This was the year I stopped performing and fully showed up for myself. As amazing as last year was, there were times where I felt really alone, and that's because I was still figuring things out, but also because my life doesn't look like a lot of my friends' lives, especially the friends that are my age. I'm someone who's always done life my own way. I don't necessarily fit into a specific box. I mean, most of us don't, but I was still in the process of finding the friends and community that I now have. Last year, I was so focused on performing and doing what I thought brands and my audience expected of me. I was also so hyper-focused on maintaining what I had rebuilt after such a hard season that I almost forgot why I was even showing up. A lot of this year has actually been me in this liminal space, this in-between space. Ooh. Between the version of myself that was working so hard to desperately maintain this life that I worked so hard to create, to the person that I am now that shows up however I want to and creates what needs to pour out of me. I no longer have to worry about maintaining the lifestyle. The life I'm continuing to build is a positive result of me following my intuition and my passions. This year, I've learned that my time, my attention, my energy are non-negotiable. I can no longer afford to spend my energy worrying about whether I'm doing things right or wrong. I can no longer afford to be available to everyone at any time of the day. No more disregarding my emotions, positive or negative, to make people feel comfortable. And as someone who's traditionally been accustomed to giving my time and energy away so freely, as a default, I've learned just how much my time and energy are essential. The more you start embodying the person you want to become and acting like the person who lives the life you've always dreamed of, the more it starts to become reality. You actually have more control over it than you think, even in just small shifts in mindset. Where are you putting your time and energy? Does it feel good? Where do you feel pressure? Where do you feel expectations are weighing you down? How much energy do you expend feeling guilty for things you think you should have done? Now that I've arrived here and I've built this life where I have this level of freedom and autonomy, which I recognize is definitely a privilege and also a luxury, what do I want to do with my time and energy? Obviously spend it with the people I love. I want to create anything and everything I can, but I also want to pour into small businesses and creators. I want to share more resources and knowledge so we can all support each other in our dreams. I want to continue to show up for vulnerable and marginalized communities, especially right now. I've learned so much in my 30s so far, and I'm grateful every day for the life I've been afforded, the life that I'm building, and who I am as a person. I wonder what my 38th year will have in store. I also want to know a valuable lesson that you've learned, so share in the comments to keep the conversation going. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe, share, do all the things. I appreciate you so much. Much love and thanks for watching. Oh, and happy birthday to me.